Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Built Like This podcast. I'm your host, Maxine. We're on episode 296. Hello, hello, hello. If you are listening and you always do that at the top of the episode, shout out to you. That means you're a true listener. Okay, where do we begin? Risa Tisa. Yes, Risa Tisa. And if you know, you know. There is this woman, a Black woman on TikTok, who decided to come online and tell us about her business through and through in all the honesty that she can muster up. Now, she released a playlist series titled Who the Fuck Did I Marry? And it's actually titled Who TF Did I Marry? Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. Okay, so it's a 50-part series. And yes, I watched it all. I watched it all. Shout out to other YouTube content creators who decided to put this all together in a single YouTube video for almost 5 hours. I watched it all. Literally right after work. Well, I started right before I left work yesterday and watched it the whole night until I went to bed. And then I realized, "Oh, I'm missing a couple of parts." So I found the other video that is the finale of the series. So in the finale, you see the final parts of her playlist, and that lasted for about 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I watched that during the day, and I'm here to discuss my feelings and opinions on this topic here. In her real life, I do believe everything that she said. I believe that she is telling the truth. I don't think this is something that she decided to make up for TikTok. Allegedly, she has made $80,000 on TikTok for this playlist. And for those who may not be familiar with how content creation goes, the longer people are watching and engage with your content, the more views you get, the more people who are recommended to your channel, and the more it goes viral, the more it's shared to other people, and the comments come in. People are talking in the comments, talking to each other, arguing with each other. All of that builds your profile and allows for you to get an income from that. That's just how it works. So because she decided to release 10-minute videos, about 10-minute videos for each video. Again, this is about 50 parts. So she made 50 videos throughout a few days. I don't know the exact time she started because, again, I watched the whole thing all at once, jumbled in a YouTube video. So I don't know when she started, but nonetheless, she decided to release this in a 10-minute format on TikTok for a period of days. And I jotted down a couple of things. Now look, I know the easy response or the easy judgment to have here is to say she's stupid, right? You know, she deserved that. Her dumb ass should have real. And look, I do appreciate that she came on TikTok and decided to be honest with us and share moments of accountability that she definitely took, that she knew she wasn't making sound choices. So that's great. What I really want to pinpoint is the fact that she was in her late 30s at the time of her meeting her now ex-husband, and her feeling like she really wants to get married. Married Being married was this goal of hers that she just needed to fulfill. And I feel like, yes, the man definitely has a lot to blame here. He is seemingly a pathological liar. it's seeming as though it seems as though he has something wrong mentally. I don't want to be, people like, oh, don't use mental. No, something's mentally off. People lie, right? People lie. Yeah, but like something about his lying is different than like a regular, ooh, I omitted the truth type of lie. What I really want to blame is this idealistic, fantastical idea and image of marriage that so many people, especially women, have been conditioned to possess. And if you don't get married, your worth is no longer. You have no worth in this world. You are someone who is unlovable and you don't deserve good things. It's just like when you say it out loud, it really sounds ridiculous. So what I do want everyone to take away from this who may feel the same as her is to say these nasty thoughts out loud. These thoughts of, oh, I'm unlovable. I'm not married because no one, like, say them out loud. And I know you're probably thinking, why would I do that? That makes things worse. No, no, no. Typically, when you say these intrusive thoughts that you have, when you say them out loud, you realize how ridiculous you sound. You realize how irrational you're being. And if you do have some sense, you start to check yourself. Once you say it out loud, like, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm dumb, no one loves me, you realize, wait, no, I'm actually really smart. I'm actually lovable. People like me. I'm I'm catered to, right? You speak life. Speak life. Okay. So I think ultimately the culprit here is this conditioning of young girls to become the women that we are today at whatever age, and this attachment of my worth with marriage. And if I don't get married, if I am not a wife, then suddenly I am not someone who deserves nice things. Remember that Kirk Franklin clip I played a few episodes a while ago? I don't know which episode it was, but I believe I played it on the podcast. And in this clip, he talks about how not everyone's going to get married. Like statistically, not everyone's going to get married. Statistically, not everyone is going to have that magical wedding day with their black man as a black woman, because typically black women want to marry black men, right? So if you really go down the totem pole, it may not happen. I'm not saying this to sound negative or to sound pessimistic at all. I'm really not. I'm just saying that you could still have a rich life. You could still have an abundant life. You could still have love in your life without this concept of I am a wife. Like, you know what I mean? So that was ultimately what made me sad while watching this, because I felt like she really didn't love herself and her life. And she kept saying, well, towards the end of the playlist, she said she hates being single. She hates being single. And look, there are times when I was single and I was feeling like, you know what I mean? But then I think, again, it's your mindset. What are we talking about? Like, we have to just stop. Like, stop it. Oh my gosh, I felt so sad for her. And so of course she came from this religious upbringing, because of course that's where it comes from. My worth comes from marriage, and if I'm not married, if I'm not loved in this context of husband and wife, then God doesn't love me. God, it's ridiculous. So she was feeling like, this is my time. Oh, did I even tell you what's going on? Okay, so let me start from the beginning in case you did not watch it, even though it's been about 1 million views. If you collect all of the views from different videos that have posted this on YouTube, it's at least 1 million views of people watching this content. So I'm sure you either heard about it or you watched it yourself or you saw some parts of it. I don't know if you finished the whole thing, but I certainly did. So to kind of summarize it, this is a 39-year-old Black woman who is living in Atlanta. She meets this guy via Facebook dating sites. Apparently, there's a dating site on Facebook. Shout out to Facebook. I didn't know they had that. But anyway, she meets this guy. We don't know his real name. She decided to not give us his real name, but she gives him the nickname of Legion. Now, I don't know if that's some like predator alien type of reference here. But apparently she's been calling him that with her girlfriends. So that's the name that she is giving him in this series. So let's just say his name is Legion, right? So she meets him through the site, but she also realizes that she was on another online dating site and he was on that site as well, but his name was a different variation of his name. So say if his name was Matthew on the Facebook dating site, on his other dating site, his name is Matt. Okay. So I say all that to say he's trying to hook them however he can, right? Oh, I'm gonna be on this side, I'm gonna be on that site, I'm gonna have a different name, I'm gonna have a different profile picture, and whoever catches. Okay. So they're talking. I think it was like a brief talk before they finally meet up. And so they're about to meet up for their first date. She's on her way to go see him. She's on this interstate in Atlanta. And she's very specific. So I feel like her specific details definitely solidified that this is a real experience. Nothing is fabricated here. At least I really don't feel like it is, right? So she is on her way to go see him on their first date. Her tire One of her tires messes up on the road and she can't. So she pulls over to a gas station. She calls him and lets him know, I'm so sorry, I won't be able to make it because something happened to my car. One of my tires ran out. He asks her, where are you? Let me know where you are. So she tells him that he comes to rescue her. And yes, that is sexy, right? She mentions how she felt so satisfied and so like she felt like a princess. And that's always a thing that women want to feel. How can you rescue me as my man? And rescue looks like a number of different things, right? Oh my God, there's a spider in my room. Rescue me, honey. Rescue, kill the spider for me, rescue me from that. Rescue me from a tire that fell out my car. Rescue me from my finances. No, but like there's always ways women in particular find refuge in men that they're dating. So that is it's nice to feel like a damsel in distress and really have your man pick you up from that, or guide you along the way while supporting you, however that looks like. So that I understand how she felt in that moment. They're meeting there on the first time at the gas station. And again, they haven't met prior. She only sees him through the pictures that she knows of him, that she saw of him on the site. He looks exactly like the picture, so she's very satisfied. Apparently, he's handsome to her. I don't know how he looks like. I don't know how else. She didn't give us like much description of his appearance. So, but nonetheless, she did say he's like 6'6". He looks just like his picture. So she was very satisfied. Okay, bet. Cool. She is a plus size woman. Okay. She's a plus size woman. She actually looks like a comic who I'm not going to reference, but she was a guest on my show almost 2 years ago now. No, like exactly 2 years ago now. Well, 3 years now. Yeah. So if you know, but I'm not gonna reference her because I don't know if that's offensive or anything. But anyway, so she's a plus size woman. And I'm mentioning this because I do wonder, the combination of that and her feeling like she really wants to get married and when's her time going to be her time, I wonder if all of that plays into effect for her being in this situation. You know what I mean? Like, did she feel unlovable because she's at this age and she's in this particular body that may not be societally acceptable beauty standards? I don't think she's ugly, but I'm just saying, like, some of these things, people who don't fit a particular mold, they adopt this mindset that is negative of how they feel about themselves and their appearance. So I wonder if that played a part for her being in this situation. Just a wonder. And him being 6'6", and oh my gosh, like, oh, someone who looks like this could love me. That type of mindset. Okay, bet. So she's so attracted to him, he rescues her, and that's great, right? So this is actually taking place during the pandemic, or at the height, well, right before lockdown. So the pandemic was brewing, but it wasn't locked down yet. They're already talking pretty frequently, and they're not, well, at least her intention, like I said, is to get married, is to tie the knot, build a family, and continue this life with this man. So there was no like, oh, well, I'll date around and see, yada yada yada. And oftentimes, what am I saying? Oftentimes, I haven't been in a pandemic before, but what I noticed from relationships that transpired during the pandemic, during that whole time frame, it either broke or flourished. So I know a couple who got married instantly, and I think that also stems from this, well, the world is ending and I'd rather spend the rest of my life with you type of, like this storybook ending to life as we know it. And there was a lot of hysteria at the time, understandably so. So she just felt like, okay, look, I'm already at this age. I want to move forward with this man. I want to get married. Let's go ahead and really go about this thing wholeheartedly. Okay, cool. So they decide to get no. So the lockdown happens. The lockdown happens and they're discussing with each other like, okay, well, we still want to we still want to spend quality time with each other. So we have to decide whose place do we want to stay in during this lockdown. And again, this is still relatively new. They're still relatively new in getting to know each other and dating. So this is an early conversation, but considering the context, okay, I guess let's just go ahead and move forward, fast forward. So they decide to stay in her house, which is a 4-bedroom townhouse that she was living in on her own. He recently moved to Atlanta and was staying in a studio apartment. And so it just made more sense for them to stay in her place. She said as soon as he came to her house, he looked around and was like, oh yeah, I hit the jackpot. This is it. I'm definitely staying here. Like there was no objection. He was gung ho. Was it gung ho? He was definitely for it, right? So bang, they're living together, they're sleeping together, they're in a relationship. Now, throughout this series, of course, we learn more of how he's a quote unquote dirty John, how he's a con artist and a manipulator, a psychopath, a pathological liar, all of these names. But there was not much detail on what about him that you did like. Like what about him that made you go, oh, such a good guy? Or, I just heard red flag after red flag after red flag. And look, I'm not here to tarnish her or make her feel even worse about herself than she probably does, because this is fairly recent. But I I would like to know what about him that made you stay as long as you did. And technically, it wasn't even that long because they got married and divorced in 6 months. So, whatever. But I just was the dick good? Like, I wanted her to say that, like, y'all, I know this was a red flag and that was a red flag, but I love the way he smelled when he held me. I love the way his dick felt. Like, what about him that made you stay? That made you let him stay in your house prior to y'all getting married? And she said when he proposed to her, it was so not romantic. It was the most unromantic proposal ever. He, like, they were already talking about getting rings. She was already aware of the ring that he was going to get her. So that there was no surprise there, which I understand how some couples do that, whatever. But he got her the ring that she wanted. And he says to her, okay, so you gonna be my wife? Like, it was just so matter of fact, and there was no roses. It was nothing romantic about it. And sure, again, they're living. This is happening during the time of COVID, where everything's locked down. I don't know, but you could still be creative. Like, what? He literally just took out the box and said, "You gonna be my wife?" And she said, "Yeah." So it's like, man, what? So I really wonder, like, dang, was he really that fine? Huh? Did the dick curve? Did it? Huh? I wonder, like, what was the big deal? I don't know. Oh, child. Okay, so they get married. They get their license, their marriage license. And like they get married on Monday, she goes to work the following day. Like, life continues. And sure, again, this is during the pandemic, yada yada yada. But my God, today, why couldn't y'all wait? So during the time, she actually ended up getting pregnant. They, of course, they were having sex, whatever. She got pregnant, and she was concerned about the pregnancy because she's already overweight, and she's at this particular age. There are many women of that age, 39 in their late 30s, who have children. This is nothing new. But she was concerned because she was overweight. So funny to me. It's like, girl, you've been overweight. What are you talking about? At what point were you gonna get pregnant? She suddenly got overweight in a day. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm overweight and I'm pregnant. I'm sure you've been overweight your whole life. I can kind of tell. And this is no shot to her, but this whole silly, people be like, oh my gosh, I got pregnant. You was having sex. Oh my gosh, I'm overweight and I'm pregnant. You've been overweight and you were having sex. What happens next? Girl, what? Anyway, so she ends up losing the baby. And I don't want to say that's a blessing from God. I don't want to say that's a blessing from God because I'm pro-life. But God works in mysterious ways, okay? And I say that because he turned out to be such a psychopath that maybe it's for the best, child. Maybe you should have just got an abortion too. If you didn't have a miscarriage, maybe you should have just gone ahead and let that baby go. Maybe the baby should have just gone. Anyway, so they have a miscarriage, yada yada yada. Long story short, what I want to point out is the red flags that I noticed from the get-go. Okay? The red flags of, okay, so he didn't have a job, like, for real, for real. He kept saying that he has money in an offshore account. And whenever I hear the word offshore account, people say it's a good business move to have an offshore account because you are protecting your funds without getting an incredible amount of taxes put on them, because when you have an offshore account, the US have no legal way to tax you, because you're sure your account is offshores. Is going by the rules of Russia, wherever your account is. So he keeps saying that he has an offshore account. He has $900,000 in it, yada, yada, yada. That's a red flag right there, because maybe I'm a pessimist. Maybe I'm a pessimist, or maybe I'm just a realist. Let's start there. And I say that because, nigga, how? Like, that wouldn't have impressed me. That would not have impressed me. I would have been like, okay, really? How? Tell me how. Give me some more detail. Like, how do you have that much money in your account? Tell me how. Tell me how. He says, "Oh, he plays this football called, what is it? Area football." Look, what? If it's NFL, what are you talking about? And even if it is the NFL, there are a lot of football players who don't make that much. So, what are we really talking about right now? So, yet this is not something that she's like asking for more details on. Like, she's just like, she takes it in. Like, ooh, he has a lot of money. Ooh. And that's the problem right there. Why are you impressed with that? Because let's say if he did, how does his life produce that fruit? You have a $900,000 amount in your account, yet you live in a studio apartment. And there's no shot to a studio apartment. I lived in one, but I didn't have $900,000. And yes, there are very nice studio apartments, depending on, where you go, the amenities, yada, yada, yada. But his wasn't like that. So that's not the case here. He didn't have a lot of money. His life did not demonstrate as such. And I think if you're someone who is so impressed by the material things in life, you're already losing. You're already susceptible to people like him. So, ma'am, that would have still not have impressed me. I remember, story time. I remember this African guy, and I think it's an African trait. I have like a drop every time I talk shit about Africans. It's a joke, but there's this African guy I remember who he was trying to talk to me, right? It was like years ago. And while he was trying to like tell me about his life and what he got going on, he was telling me the cost for everything. So he's a barber, and he's saying how he charges at least $1,000, and he cuts at least 5 heads a day, yada yada yada. And I'm over here just like, oh, okay. Now, if I was someone who valued money like that, I'd have been like, oh my gosh, that means you could buy me stuff. That means you could take me out. That means. Yet he drove a car that didn't mean it didn't match up. It didn't mean that he made $10,000 a day or $5,000. Your car is jacked up, sir. Sir, you're driving a caravan. You have how much? You make how much? What are we talking about? So he's like talking about that, right? So he notices that, I don't know if he noticed that I looked at his car, but he immediately had a defense for it, right? So he's like, oh, so he takes out his phone and he says, oh, I talked about this like years ago. What episode? This was when I was like living in my uncle's house. years ago. So this is like a while ago, but I still remember. He's like, oh, he takes out his phone and he shows me his car, his real car. It's this BMW 5. I don't know what the series are. 5 Series, 4, 45. What? I don't know. It's a series. Nice BMW. Again, I don't care. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is my car for real, but I shipped it to Ghana or Singhalese, whatever, wherever the fuck." Okay, but do you have a car now? No? Okay. Okay. So what do we don't tell me about what you sold, what you shipped to Ghana cuz you're such a humanitarian. You're so hospitable and you're so charitable. Oh my gosh. Sir, your caravan has a big dent on both sides, but you charge $50,000. You make $50,000 because you charge $1,000 a haircut and you have 5 a day, but you don't have your own salon. Okay. And I say all this to say, if I was Risa Tisa, I would have been impressed. I would have been hoodwinked. But because my values are the way they are, I'm not impressed. I wasn't impressed. I will never be impressed. So I say all this to say that was a red flag. Don't tell me about the money that you got and oh my God. Instantly, he would have been weeded out. If I was Risa Tisa and this man talked about his offshore account, why are you telling me about your accounts? Why are we talking about money on the first date? What? I don't know. Maybe I'm just awkward with money, but like, ew, what are we talking about? What are you doing right now? So that's the red flag number 1 for me. What else did I say here? Okay, so they were in the process of buying a house and a car. They're going to different open houses and they go to like 22 different houses. Finally, they decide on a few houses. They move forward in the process. But when it comes down to showing the proof of funds and getting the offer, he wouldn't show his proof of funds. I wonder why. He was saying to them, "Oh, give me the offer first and then I'll show you proof of funds." That's not how it goes. You can't do that. And what I actually want to blame is the realtors. I want to blame the realtors here. Why did they even give him the time or day? I remember every open house I would just like saunter in of like a year or two ago. I was just like, oh, this house is nice. Let me just walk in. Let me manifest this house. And as soon as I look around to the kitchen cabinet, the realtor's in my face talking about, are you pre-approved? Ma'am, I just walked in. Can I get a mimosa first? What are you talking about? No, I'm not. I am not. I need more time. But that's their first question. And you know what? After watching this, you learn that time is money. And I'm not trying to waste my time talking to someone who's not even pre-approved yet. Get all of the realtors Risa Tisa and her con ass husband talked to didn't get that situated first. Okay. So that's red flag number 2, 3, and 4. Next, so he's living in her house, right? He's always getting on the phone, talking to his quote unquote brother, saying, like, having conversations like, hey, bro, what you up to? Oh, really? You about to go to the spot? You know, like literally having these conversations that sound like real conversations. And he'll also say, "Oh, Johnny, yeah, she's right next to me talking about Risa Tisa." And he'll say to her, Johnny says hi. And then Risa Tisa will say, "Hi, Johnny." Like just from afar in the house. Not once did she like get on the phone and say, "Oh, let me talk to him," or let me start to say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Yada yada yada. So it's like, why isn't she talking to them on the phone too? Why isn't she getting on the line saying one or two words? Why does he always have to speak on her behalf, type of thing? And typically, like whenever people talk on the phone near me, I can hear the other person's voice. So she's never heard the other person's voice. Yet she just accepted that he's talking to someone on the phone. Okay. Um, okay, bet. So come to find out he wasn't talking to anyone on the phone. It was nobody on the other line. He was making that up. And obviously that was a big red flag. But prior to us learning that he wasn't talking to anyone, I saw this as a red flag anyway because it felt like he was performing. Like he was trying to present himself as this like family guy or someone who is trustworthy. Hey, I can have conversations in front of my wife. And it's like, what? Silent if you gotta make a phone call. I, and first of all, why talking to your brother every day? I don't know my brother's number. What are we talking about? The point is, why are you trying to present this image of yourself? You're literally trying to force her to believe this image of you. That's a big red flag. So people might think, "Oh, that's cute. He has a close relationship with his brother." No, that's weird. Why are you that close talking to him every day? Come to find out, no one was on the line. No one was on the other line. Okay? So we're going to pause right here and I'm going to come right back. And we're back. We are back. Clearly an outfit change. I had to get comfortable, but make sure you are checking out the YouTube video so you see what I'm talking about. But let's go ahead and continue with what we were talking about. So, a few of the points that I want to cover. The thing with this revelation of Risa Tisa, well, not revelation, but her talking about this dirty John of hers of Legion. Um, Throughout this time period, she was persistent, insistent, determined to get to the bottom of things. She was determined to figure out who this man is. All the while, he was still living in her home. And correct, at the time they were married, but she was doing her darndest to find answers, to investigate, to figure it out. She was a detective, a unpaid detective, but honestly, after all the investigation that she just did, she deserves to be a detective just instantly at this point and get paid as such. Because when I tell you she called the ex-wife, she spoke to some of his family members and she found out about his dynamics in his family. She learned about his social security number. She memorized the number that she saw initially and did a background check and then found another social security number that she had of him and learned that, oh, that's the correct identity. Anyway, the point is she kept going at it. She had this bulletin board essentially of who this man was, trying to piece together information. And I just feel like that right there felt ridiculous and unnecessary. I think sometimes with women, we feel like we are owed something. We're owed an explanation, we're owed an answer. And sure, Getting an answer that's honest is great. I appreciate it. But when someone like him, who is a pathological liar, he lied to her time after time after time after time. And when she came forward and said, "Let me ask you a question. Did you really go to California State, for example, of a college, right? Did you really go? Did you really do this? Did you really do?" Like, she was questioning him on all the things that he told her he did. And she knew the answer to the question. She knew that he lied to her. She knew that he was creating a whole false narrative of his life. Yet she wanted to hear it from him. She wanted him to say, "I lied about everything. I am a pathological liar." Find me a pathological liar who would admit that I am a pathological liar. That doesn't exist. A narcissist don't a narcissist doesn't tell you that I'm a narcissist. Someone who has a mental illness don't accept it. Like, they typically don't accept it. They typically don't come forward and say, "Yeah, I'm fucked up. Stay away from me." No, they're living in Delulu land. That's how they operate. That is how their mental illness is set up for them, literally. So she was like breaking a vein in her neck, trying her darndest to figure out who this man is and, "Why do you keep lying to me? Why are you lying to me? Who are you?" Like, she's doing all of that, and it's like, but for what? For what? Yeah, he's your husband at the time, but honestly, what do y'all really have going on? You just met this man. Y'all got married within a month of knowing each other. And again, I'm not trying to knock her, but y'all got married so quickly that I feel like, with all the events that took place, of him lying to her, of him not really being who he said he was, I I would have been done. Like, it wouldn't even have to be "Oh, I want to find more information. I need to unravel this web." It wouldn't even have gone further in my head. Definitely not in reality either. I would have just been like, "Oh, that was lie number 2 or 3. Yeah, okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up." That's it. Like, we're not even talking at this point. I'm not gonna go out of my way and stress and take days off from work to investigate and travel to another town and talk to his ex-wife. And yeah, it's like, what? For me, maybe I'm just someone who really find pleasure in ignorance. Ignorance is really bliss. I really do believe in that. I feel like if I don't have to know, then I'm not gonna find out. I'm not gonna go out of my way. I went through my boyfriend's phone, not my current boyfriend. Make that clear. Hello, not you, but my ex-boyfriend years ago. I went through his phone. He was my first boyfriend. I went through his phone, and that was the last time I went through a man's phone. That's enough, because what I learned from that moment was there was information here that I couldn't control. He's going to text who he wants to text. He's going to leave messages in his phone that he wants to leave. So my issue was, at the time, with that guy, with that boyfriend, was he left messages on his phone of girls who he either used to talk to or was still talking to. Like, the messages were dating back to months prior, like so long ago. And for me, on my phone, I am quick to delete a message. Like, not quick, but like, I clean out that's what I mean. I clean out my phone. I don't leave old messages on my phone unless we are currently talking. Like, and this is a friend. I'm talking about like just friends, right? I like to clean out my phone. And the only messages I remain on my phone are messages that are priority messages. So like me and my man, like I don't delete our text thread. But everyone else is like, okay, we're deleting it for the day. Like we're done. Like what are we talking about? I'm not keeping messages from a week ago on my phone. I don't like a lot of clutter. And I'm talking digitally and in real time, in physical time. I don't like a lot of clutter. So that's just me. So I was annoyed when I went through his phone and I saw all these messages from a year ago at the time. And I'm like, why does he have all these messages? I'm like, why don't you just clean your phone? And then I found myself to feel silly. Why am I telling you how to use your phone? And I was really getting mad at the time. And I'm looking at it, obviously in retrospect, but at the time I really felt entitled, thinking, no, you should clear out your phone the way I clear out my phone. And then the card of jealousy came in, like, no, I'm jealous because why do you still have this girl's text thread on your phone? Are you still talking to her? And so it just became this thing where I was minding someone else's business. That's what it is. You're minding somebody else's business. Why do I need to know what's happening in your phone? No, I don't need to know your passcodes. Oh, that means we trust each other. No. Why am I on your phone? And why are you on my phone? Right? I mean, it goes both ways, but the point is, that was the first time and last time I checked a man's phone who I was dating. Like, I don't go on anyone's phone, especially not the man I'm dating. Shit. What happens in your phone stays in your phone. It got shit to do with me. That's really and that's just me though. But it helps with my mental capacity. I feel like when you're running on jealousy, you are minding business that's not yours. You're creating scenario after scenario of someone else who, yes, you have a connection with, but you're now creating things that really aren't true, and you're trying to justify it like, oh, because I'm your girl, I need to know. I don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm different, but I don't need to know what's going on in your phone. Why? Why? What's the saying say? What comes out in the wash? No, what comes in the rinse comes out in the wash. Whatever the fuck. I don't need to know. Okay, so with Risa Tisa, she was always checking what was going on. And I just felt like that was unnecessary, and it caused her more drama than it needed to. She could have walked away much earlier. And yes, it's not easy to walk away in a marriage, in a legally binding marriage. Got it, got it, got it. But I think for her mental sake, she did not need to go down the rabbit hole. She like towards the end of the TikToks, I was just thinking to myself like, why is she still talking about this? And I'm not saying in a sense of like, oh, she should never talk about this at all, but in the sense of in that moment in time, for her to be so relentless and trying to find answers, I'm thinking, why is she still doing this? Why is she still trying to find answers? Why do you care? Oh, because he's her husband. So he was your husband of 3 weeks. Really? It was of 3 weeks. They got married on January 5th of 2020 or 2021. 3 weeks later, she said herself, I think it was January 31st or the 30th, she said she knew she was in trouble. Meaning she knew she should not have gotten married to this man. This man is not turning out to be the man who she thought or hoped he was. And it was like, so what? Why are you getting so flustered? Ooh, he sexted somebody. Maybe I'm just not as emotionally connected as another woman may be, but I just felt like for the short amount of time that you were married and knew this man, you are so obsessed with him that you went out of your way to call his ex-wife. Girl, I'm not calling an ex anybody. I'm not calling your ex-wife, your ex-child, your ex your ex-employer. What are we talking? We're done. We're done. So God bless her. I hear that she made $80,000 from this TikTok series. And, if this is what it takes to make some money, man, I got a story for y'all. No, but shout out to her. I wish her well. And I hope this is a lesson for anybody. There's so many things to learn from this, right? One of the lessons that continue to repeat itself is there's no such thing as closure. There's no such thing as closure. We think that, if he tells me the truth, if he explains to me, there was a point. Okay, so let me tell y'all this. So she ended up asking him, like, one of their last conversations, she's like, why did you pick me? Why did you choose me? Like, what about me made you target me and do what you did and lie the way you lied? And why did you choose me? He says, because he knew if, no, she asked verbatim, why did you marry me? He said he had to marry her because if they were just dating, she would have left a long time ago. It wouldn't have lasted more than a year. That's what he said. So he needed to marry her to lock her down and feed off of her. Because obviously he's not someone who's financially stable. He's not someone who's mentally well, to be honest with you. He is not someone who is mentally well. So he needs to feed off of her to get in this stability, which is still false because he's still not doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's still not being honest and being truthful about his skills or lack thereof and his money and his dealings, etc. So all in all, child, I think the overall theme is stop trying to find closure. Like, stop trying, like, it's pointless. I think also her desire and her idolatry, really, her idolatry of marriage got her fucked up. It really did, because we could blame this man all we want, and yes, he has a lot of faults, but I look at him as someone who's handicapped. I look at him as someone who is literally unable to tell the truth. According to what she said, and from her conversations from his family, they said that he's been lying since he was young. So I don't know what traumatic thing may have happened to him at that age that led to him being who he is to this day, or if he was just born that way. I don't know what it is, but the point is he has always been this way. He has he's gonna be who he is. So for her, it's about like not just like prioritizing your life, like not letting your depression or desperate energy get you in these spots. Like, so ultimately she's the one to blame, and I hate to victim blame, yada yada yada, but she's the one to blame here. So God bless. um Let's see how things turn out. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end this episode here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support, and I will check in with y'all next time. Peace.